Hello and welcome to another The Agent is In. This is episode 31, and Herman's joining us today to give us a sneak peek at what's coming in our next release, 3.23.0. Herman, what do you got for us today?
All right, so we're going to look at some of the new functionality and yeah, something that is brand new and something that's kind of been introduced over time in the last release as well, which was also non-LTS. But for those unaware, these non-LTS releases are more to show off new features and give people a chance to try them rather than something that you would run in production. So I'm going to jump over to the mission portal here. And we'll start by looking at groups. So groups were introduced this summer, and they're a way to take a filter and give it a name and treat it as something called a group, which then you can use that for reports, or you can assign data to a group. So to get straight into what's new, we can create a new group. So we'll go to here and let's do my favorite hosts. So one new feature now is this new include hosts option, include and exclude hosts. So this menu allows you to choose individual hosts that you want to be a part of your group or your report or not. Previously, this was quite limited to only the CFEngine ID, and you couldn't really save it as part of the filter or the group. But now it's saved, and there's a lot more flexibility here. So let's say you have some machines. I have 6 here, and you want to make a group out of them. Customers have been asking for ways to, say, add 3 IP addresses. So instead of the ID, we can add the IP for this host. And I'm going to do the same for the 3 top ones here. You also get the other information you can add by host name, MAC address, ID, and IP. So now we see that I've added 3 IPs to the right here. It's also telling me the host name just for some context. And I'm going to click confirm here. And then I'm going to save the changes. So now what this means is that in the future, even if these hosts are reinstalled with a new CFEngine ID, they would still have the same IP and they would still be in the group. And similarly, if you end up changing the IP of one of those hosts, it's no longer going to be included in this group if it has a different IP, because that's what it's based on. You can also do this for exclusion. So let's start by saying I want every host with the CFEngine class, which should be every reporting host. So now it's 6 hosts because it's all my hosts, and then I've included, but those are the same. But now we can start excluding. So let's say I don't like this host. I don't want this one to be a part of the group. I can add it to the exclude lists and confirm. And then, yeah, click save. Did I do that wrong? Let's try removing these and see if it's going to be saved now. All right, so now it's working. So we had 6, now we have 5 because we have 1 excluded. And the yeah, the end result here is that you can combine these filters. I'm not sure why it was not working just now, but exclude should take precedence. In fact, if we try to break it again, let's say, which was the one I added? 102. So that's this one. That one is excluded. Okay, so let's try to include it again. 102, add. All right. So that is
There's
not
a
working.
warning icon next
Yeah,
to
so there's a
exclusion.
warning icon.
Yeah.
But it's a bug.
Cool.
The logic there seems reversed.
Yeah, so it should be the other way. It looks like now the inclusion is taking precedence, but yeah, so it's explained here that
So when you include a host explicitly and exclude the same host explicitly, you'll get this warning about that conflict.
Yeah.
Got it. So I see that you can like click through and add some, individual hosts by name. What if I've got like, what if there's a host name naming convention and I want to say like, all of the hosts that start with www are web servers. Is there a way that I can do that?
So you still have filters, which are supposed to be the main way to do this kind of dynamic rules. This is just in addition to that. So name here, we can do regex match. What did you say?
Starting with www, but that's none of yours, so maybe.
Yeah, we can do IP, since those are the host names, we can do IP-172.
Yeah.
Then something.
Which will be all of them.
Yeah, so that's going to be all of them. Additionally, since we thought it would be useful in the host inclusion and exclusion when you're talking about IPs, we should be able to do subnets as well. So let's say 172.3.1.15.102 and then /16. That's all of them. Are any in the same
Add the whole
subnet?
subnet.
Yeah. So here we've added the subnets. You see it's matching those 6 hosts, and this is exclusion, so they should be excluded. Yeah. Cool. So this should give you a lot of flexibility in terms of defining groups based on rules or groups based on these kind of lists. Yeah. These filters here are the same that are in the inventory reports. So the same functionality is available there. Let's go back to groups a little bit. So I'm going to take a look at, let's start with all hosts, perhaps. So now that we have groups, you'll be able to set data for more than one host at a time, and also without changing your policy. So we can go to data here, and this allows you to set variables and classes. It's the same as the host-specific data, but now for more than one host. So here we have these suggestions. Let's say we want to evaluate policy every minute. previously you could do this change for a single host, or you could do this change in policy, and that would apply to all your hosts, but it would mean a new commit and push and things like that. But now we can just add this to the group. And now all of my hosts, since this group definition has all of the hosts, will get these variables and start running according to this one. So same with other things, enabling auto run. This is just a short list of suggestions, but anyone who's familiar with policy language or how the MPF default policy set works know that there's a lot of these classes and variables that you can set to define the behavior. And that can now be done here for all hosts, or another example would be to say for only Ubuntu hosts. So we can say, let's put a maintainer for all Ubuntu hosts, and that can be Craig Comstock. Call him if you need help with apt. And then I want this to be in the inventory with the attribute name maintainer. And then let's save that. So now we've added some variables to all of the hosts, and we've added this variable to all Ubuntu hosts. Let's try to see if we can find it in the reporting data. Oh, I can show a new feature, by the way. If you're looking for the hub, here I found it kind of by accident. It was the first one in the list. But to easily find the hub now, you can go here, and then that'll take you straight to the hub info page to make that a little easier. So let's see. Let's try to do an agent run. So this should allow this this host, which is the hub, to fetch new policy, run its policy, and prepare the reporting data, so that shortly in the mission portal here we'll have the new reporting data, and maybe we'll see maintainer here soon. So here, maintainer is Craig Comstock. I can pin this to my host info page. And I can now go through the other groups and start assigning maintainers. Maybe I want to assign maintainer email address as well. That could be useful information to have here when someone is looking at a host.
Nice.
Any
So I
questions
also
on this,
see
Nick?
here there's the host specific data. That's just the data that applies to this specific host.
Correct. So if you want to set a maintainer in this case for this hub specifically, you could put it in here. And since host specific data is more specific, it will take precedence. So for this host, it will be whatever you put here. While for all of the other hosts that you haven't set something specifically, it will go to what's in the group, essentially.
Right. You know, one cool thing that we could do on this page is have a list of the groups that this host is part of, and you could like click on them and go over to them. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. So the groups are going to show up a lot more places in the mission portal UI. As you can tell, we are working on this, and this host inclusion and exclusion stuff was merged yesterday, so there's still things to be fixed and improved.
So how does this is additive? I know we've talked about groups before, but your groups have priority and then it's additive because you had made some changes to all hosts and then you had made some changes to Ubuntu. What did you do on all hosts again? Can we see what the data is?
Additive in terms of the data.
Yeah, I was just a little bit curious. Okay, so you've got a couple of variables and then you've got a class. So services auto run you've turned on for all hosts. Is there, what if I wanted to turn off services auto run on Ubuntu? It's less specific. So I would have to have another, like a disable services auto run that would in policy take precedence. There's no way to like exclude that class from a subsequent group.
Yeah, so it's quite similar to policy in that way that if you try to define and then undefine classes, that becomes a bit tricky. We try to avoid that. So as you're suggesting, if you have policy to provide both options, like a disable autorun class, and that would take precedence, then you could put that disable autorun class on the more specific host that you want to disable it on.
Gotcha. What other like where else are we going to start seeing groups then in Mission Portal? Like what I mean, there's some changes to the filtering and stuff that's happening here, but what else can we maybe look forward to?
Yeah, so I think if we go here, you can open an inventory report from the groups app. So then you're directed to the inventory. And then similarly, when you're in inventory, we're adding ways to select groups here so that you can reuse this group across Mission Portal. Very similarly would be in compliance reports for the filtering there. So we have an example here, example compliance report. So this one is currently applying to all hosts, but again, we are adding ways to select the group for this report, and that way you don't have to re-enter these filters again and again.
Is that going to be like a logical combination of groups or just like you can choose this group as the filter?
You choose the group as the filter. I think we'd rather build in the flexibility into the groups rather than making this this menu kind of more complicated.
Right. Okay. Cool.
So like another example of that is like in groups. This is not brand new, but relatively new for anyone who's on LTS. You have this class is defined. This is something we added to make the filters more flexible to use them in groups, and then it kind of the same filter is used in inventory as well. So that's kind of a new feature there.
So besides then using groups for like saved filters, what other, do you have any other thoughts about things that we might see with groups in the future? Like other.
Yeah, so we have the data now, the variables. We're improving this UI as well, and then we're also looking at the module input. So that's essentially something that ends up being data, but with a different UI. So if we look at CFEngine build here, I have some modules that I have deployed here. Decent example might be uninstall packages. So probably if something that would make sense is to be able to uninstall packages on only a specific group. We can try to configure this one to see the example.
Does that not take input data? No, it does.
Let's look at another one, maybe. This one lists input data.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right, so here, this you can do already for all of the hosts. You can say, I want to delete this file because it's a virus. But doing these kind of changes will be a lot more powerful if you're able to say just specific hosts or groups of hosts where you want to apply this.
So this change here ends up modifying the repository where the project or the policy is coming from. But then
Correct.
if like when module data comes into groups, that won't be a change to the project or the policy set. That's only going to be a change to the data that's ultimately delivered to the hosts, right?
Correct. So when
Right,
you're
so
editing the
hub
project
database.
here, you're essentially editing a Git repo, and this gets, I mean, the normal way of doing it is that this gets pushed somewhere. And if you have multiple hubs, you would see this change on all of the hubs using the same policy set, the same project. Whereas the data, the CMDB data, is per hub. I guess yeah, there's
So right
some
now you
tools
could
here.
you could dig into whatever variables this input data is defining. I guess it's there below. Variables, delete files, files. So if you went and defined that in groups right now, just as a variable,
Yeah,
like it would work.
yeah, it's the same thing. We're just working to make the UI more intuitive and more easy to both edit and also to present what data ends up actually doing. Here is a more concrete example. There's a recommendation to delete these .shosts files, which are for host-based authentication. So that could be something that maybe you want to do for all hosts. Another example could be if you want to uninstall things. If you want to uninstall Apache, maybe you want to do that on most machines, but not all. Not on the hub if you're running CFEngine and it has Apache there. So probably there you want to run Apache, but not on your other hosts. So that's the kind of thing that you can specify with groups and module input.
Cool. More composable.
As Nick said, you can do this today by looking up like what's the variable name I need to edit and then going to the data and editing that variable name, but we want to make it even nicer than that.
Cool. Anything else that you want to show off, or is that pretty much what we're looking at for 323?
For 323, this is the bigger features. There's always smaller bug fixes, and we're always looking at these small like UI issues. And yeah, there was something not working earlier with the exclusion list, so we're fixing small things like this. But the main new feature for this release is the including and excluding of hosts.
Cool. All right. Anybody who's live, any questions that you would like on the recording?
So, were we gonna think about targeting different policy sets to different groups, like through build, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little bit down the road, but that's a great use case as well.
Yeah, 'cause I
Again,
often
these
thought
are the
about
things
like
that you can
staging
kind of
stuff.
you could set this up today as well through variables and assigning some logic to it yourself, but it is true that it's something that we want to introduce with the groups and build.
Yeah.
So then switching projects and policy sets, then you can kind of build on top of that to do things like automatically migrating the hosts through like a series of groups, perhaps, or like as they're transitioning to a different version of policy, maybe, or something like that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, so you could have a group for your test environment 1 and test environment 2, and then change which policy they're subscribing to transition them through. And
Cool.
Yeah,
Like
that'd be
phase.
cool.
people have built this already, but doing everything from the UI would certainly be very nice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing what's almost out. We should probably go get the rest of it out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thanks for joining us for episode 31. And we'll see you guys next time.